It's green for go. They're racing. He says go. He says ta-da. And Tiger Tara roars away from them on the home turn. Here comes another big boil over. Equine athleticism at its best. The king is in the castle once more. This is in one race. The rest are almost in another post. She is a star with a capital S. It's going to be a triple treat. A miracle three-peat. Ladies and gentlemen, you have witnessed history here at Menangle. What about that? It's getting right up on the sprint lane and it's going to bolt in.
Good morning, welcome to this week's episode of the Sprint Lane. Paul Cochran with you. I've got Jess Watkins and Freddie Hastings in unfamiliar surrounds, guys.
Yeah, a new background today, but it's very nice.
I feel with all those books in the background, we should have a glass of brandy and a cigar. It just feels like we're in the library.
A dressing gown. I guarantee you it is real. These books are real. It's not a green screen that we're sitting in front of. We are in obviously different settings because the Carnival of Miracles is in full swing. And, guys, obviously that comes with it extra broadcast. Sky Racing Active was in play on Saturday night for a great night of racing, and we've been kicked out.
I like our new surrounds. Nice on the comfy chairs. It's very good.
It's come with some technical challenges as well at the same time, though. So if you're on the live stream and you're seeing us a bit later than normal, that explains a little bit. We're going to have a bit of a streamlined show today. How's your week been, guys? Freddie, you were carrying a sore back last week. That's seemingly on the mend a little bit.
It's getting better.
Getting better. The move's going okay?
Move's going okay. I've got tradies to meet a little later on this afternoon to fix a few things, but yeah.
Good stuff. And Jess, racing, this must be an exciting time for the club.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time for the club. It's where all eyes are really on Menangle for that 3 to 5 week period, and it really started out with plenty of fire on the track on Saturday night, and I'm excited for what the next 2 weeks will bring.
All right, speaking of that, let's get into it. Hey, great night of racing. How good was Rip to open up that card on Saturday night, Jess?
Yeah, he was really exciting. Of course, he was an emergency for the Chariots of Fire, but didn't gain a start, so he went around in the first, and he was electric the way he came home, and it was great to see him bounce back into the winner's circle.
I feared for him how wide he went, though, Fred. That's as wide as I've seen a horse come and then still win by so far.
I thought a pattern was going to evolve. Of course, we had a storm and the rain was pretty full on. We started the meeting 2 hours late. And I thought, is this going to be a day or a night where the swoopers really come to the fore? First 2 races, that was pretty much how it played out. And I thought, here we go. You've got to be looking for things getting out wide. But then at the track, it all balanced back up again, and the leaders were able to kick on.
It did. We talked a bit about David Thorne last week in Our Money Rocks. That's now 4 in a row since that horse has changed hands, Jess. Got it flying.
Yeah, he's really hit his straps since joining a Thorne stable, and at $31, I couldn't believe the odds that he went around, and he lived up to the raps that we had on him last week. He was very impressive.
The magic touch of Thorny, heaven on high is next, Fred.
I hope so. Yeah, he's trialling in a week and a half, so hopefully Heaven on High will emulate the feats of Our Money Rocks and Sky Blue and others.
Beautiful. Well, speaking of, that's one horse that behaved itself. Another who didn't is one that we talk about a lot on the show, and that's Caligula. Naughty boy did not want to go at all in the Trotters race, but that said, a great win for David Morris and Shannon Price. I thought Credit Master was a good thing at a price in that race and gave everyone a good sight for their money if you're on. But gee, fantastic result for Van Sank, who we've seen done well at this track before. Yes. And not that long ago.
That's right. He won the free-for-all, the Group 3, back on Breeders' Challenge night. And he seems to be firing every New South Wales Carnival of late. Better
zip it. That Grimson-Hart combination, Fred, it came out and did the job at tomato sauce odds, but you can only win a race that's put in front of you.
Real upward scope for this horse. I think the way it attacked the line up on the inside, Cam just persevered for the inside run it came, and it was very determined up the straight, and I like the horse.
Blue Chip Delight, the Jack Trainer, and an emerging star in my mind, Jack Brown, Jess. Great to see him do well on a big night.
Yeah, Jack Brown definitely is a star of the future, that's for sure. He's one of our leading junior drivers here in the Metropolitan ranks, and it was a great steer on Saturday night, and he partnered up with his boss, and good to see them get the job done for Mary and Amelia Rosati.
And if we needed a reminder, Fred, that it was business time, it was that stoush of Tay and Tough Tilly in the that was in the Robin Dundee, the Group 3. What a great race, but how good was Tough Tilly?
Unbelievable. Probably right up there with the run of the night. Obviously, we'll touch on the Chariots, and that was a phenomenal performance. But she sat outside, Tay did Tough Tilly, and just kept coming, and I thought it was an outstanding performance by her. Again, sadly, this weekend she's been dealt a savage blow with an outside draw, but she's good enough to overcome that.
Gee, the Oaks heats were good, Jess. Clue Flyby and Peaceful. Peaceful's obviously our local hope. Clue Flyby is a Kiwi that Tim Williams drove a treat. That was a great battle, but Clue Flyby is class.
That's right, and I think me and Freddie have definitely had our stoushes before on this show, whether we're in the Peaceful camp or not, and I've definitely always been in the Peaceful camp, but I think Kahlua Flyby is definitely the one to beat on that performance. We've seen her make her Aussie debut here a few weeks ago on the Tuesday, and she seems to have taken enormous improvement from that run, and on Saturday she really was focused on the task at hand, and I think she'll be good enough to win the final.
1.5 miles is her go, and we saw that. She's a real dour type, and she really, it was a real gritty effort, and I know you love Peaceful, but I can't see them beating Kahlua Flyby on
Agreed.
We'll get into a bit of a preview of the Oaks a bit later, but the other horse that came out and did so well through the second heat was Soho Seraphine for Mick Stanley. Windy Hill Tara and Savion really good in the places. I guess the big disappointment was Jewel Melody, though. Went round at $1.70, and we've got such high hopes and high expectations of Jewel Melody based on how she went last year. Just looks short of a gallop.
Yeah, I think over the 2,400 metres she had to sit without cover and she was first up. I don't think any of that went in her favour and she probably performed accordingly there.
She's better than that, and
Of
we'll
course.
see her.
We'll see her bounce back,
100%.
that's for
It'd
sure.
be disappointing not to see her in a final, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We're unaccustomed, aren't we,
Yeah.
to seeing her not make a big race final? But Bernie he'll make sure she ticks over, gets a few boxes ticked, she'll bounce back.
And then, of course, we had Catch a Wave. It was all about Captain Ravishing for the week leading up to the race. Catch a Wave just said, hold my beer, and it was way too good. It was a dominant performance in the end.
It was, and it was an amazing effort in that they've broken the 150. He sat parked outside the Boom Horse. Catch a Wave sat parked outside the captain, and it was a real clever drive. There was a point in that race where Kate Gath, they came towards the turn and they kicked right away, and Kate went back to get the slipstream trail of Captain Ravishing just to give him a little bit of cover around the turn. And then when she pulled him out again, he really savaged the line. Kate's never not driven the horse. She's driven him in every start. They've had him as a baby. And I spoke to Andy Gath on the radio on the weekend, and he actually said he feels this horse is the best horse he's had.
Yeah.
And that's saying so. Like that's a big,
that's
and an
big
emotional
bucks, isn't
win. An emotional win too, because Richard Williams, one of the owners, he passed away. At the back end of last year, and so an emotional win for the camp. Obviously, wife Pauline still continues to race, but it will give the Matthews family some joy knowing that he's made a miracle mile field.
They ran time too, 149.
149.1 sitting park, so it was very impressive. But just touching on there, it was great to have the family on course. You could see the emotion there and how much it meant to them, that win. But it was just an incredible drive by Kate. I really think that's what helped to win him the race.
Sure.
So what do we make of Captain Ravishing?
Well,
Did all
the
the
biggest
work.
conundrum
Obviously did all
is
the work.
he's run second in a Chariots.
Yeah.
The directors have got a decision to make, haven't they? Unless something out of the box happens in the placings on Saturday in the sprint qualifiers, the connections have rolled the dice. He was the pre-post tab favourite to win the Miracle Mile. I reckon he'll be there. We'll see him again in 2 weeks. But is he
Will they
really
go that path? Or will they say that's enough? I mean, I don't know. I spoke to Mark. So
Yeah.
I had a bit of time talking to Mark Pitt, who had the drive, obviously, on Friday night at Newcastle. Obviously, nothing had happened up until that point. We're going to talk about Mac Dan a little later in the show. But at that point, he said, well, because what's the plan? Because I know that Emma Stewart's team have got form in coming up here and then going back to Victoria. And he said, if the horse wins, we'll go back to Victoria. If the horse doesn't win, then the horse stays. Now, the horse is gone. So what do we make of that?
I just think we make that he might get an invitation and might come back. I don't know. They may decline an invitation, but I know it's an option open to the directors here. And we've seen in the past historically, they'll pluck one that they think should be there to make the field, generate the publicity and the
controversy.
Look at the controversy, but look at the publicity the Chariots garnered during the lead up. And with the greatest of respect to the rest of the field, it was simply all about Captain Ravishing.
Yeah, it was.
You catch a wave through the curveball and says, as you said, hold my beer, look what I can do.
Well, the betting was too. $1.15 Captain Ravishing started at.
And the Chariots is such a good race as a lead into the Miracle Mile. And I think I brought up the stat last week that of the last 8, I think it is, 8 or 9 Chariots, the winner of the Chariots has come out and either won or placed in the Miracle Mile 2 weeks later. Yeah. So, that augurs well for Catch a Wave, and I guess on some levels augurs okay for Captain Ravishing if he gets invited.
Yeah,
I think as of yesterday, Captain Ravishing was still sitting as the $3 tab fixed odds favourite in the market,
Miracle Mile. Wow.
Yeah, so that's interesting as well.
Would you got $3 before Saturday? What price was Captain Ravishing for the Miracle Mile before Saturday?
He was shorter than that, I
about
think.
the 220 mark, around that.
Yeah. Here's one for you. Remember when we talked about the Hunter Cup and we said, what didn't Zeus Braymack and Pete said, so get a go, and we said, well, they prioritise the Victorians.
They left out Catch a Wave.
Is this our turn?
Just
saying, guys. It was a fantastic night at Menangle. High class racing. Hey, well done to the track staff because the conditions came in. I was sitting at junior sport in the afternoon and watched the weather come in, and I thought, no, we'll be right. But it came in so quick. Like it moved quick, and then the rain wasn't necessarily a thing, but it was the lightning. The lightning was striking.
I've not seen lightning, and I've got a bird's eye view looking to the west, and the lightning bolts were at times you were getting 3 and 4 just dropping out of the sky simultaneously. It was spectacular. There was a lightning strike that hit not far behind the head-on camera tower, behind it, very
and that
close.
Bang was very, very loud.
I thought
think
it was
sent everybody off on course.
I jumped, but that's nothing unusual.
One thing we know is lightning and horses, and they're not really a friend of each other.
They don't go, that's for sure.
But well done to the club. Obviously, things got pushed back a few times.
Yeah.
But the way the program sort of got condensed, I guess, with the wait times in between races to our stewards team and how it was programmed, we moved through quite quick. They did well to get the race fully executed. We're in a different room, and if you're hearing that, there are different sounds that come along. We're not that far from obviously a race day starting, so you hear different sounds starting to come through the stream. It's not us.
It was the phone. I think someone wanted a loaf of bread and some milk brought.
Yes.
Hello.
So what we'll do, we'll rattle through what else has happened in a great week of racing. So, Jess, now the best thing you saw this week, you want to go to Penrith with us?
Yeah, I'm jumping back to Penrith last Thursday night, and everybody knows I love a long-standing maiden, and it was that Ripstone Snorter. He finally broke through at start number 33 for Terry Frost and Glenn McElhenney, and they were very, very happy connections, that's for sure. He had 17 placings prior, but it was just great to see, and Terry was so excited. You could tell how much work has gone into that horse, and they truly deserved it.
That was a program that had doubles for Jimmy Douglas and Will Rickson also as well. Jimmy's going really well at Penrith with ladies. We mentioned Flying Pegasus. The result he had the week before, double again. He was prominent on the fantasy harness racing points this week too, the little fella. So I think he's pretty happy with himself, and so he should be. Ultra Orlando is one that I wouldn't mind raising. An 11-year-old. We forget how long Ultra Orlando's been in the game. Went round as an 11-year-old and won at Menangle on Tuesday. First win since October. Great to see. And that was a real stoush between two best mates too, Cameron Hart and Jack Callaghan. You'd see them sort of winding each other up as they were getting close to the post there, Jess.
Yeah, I thought Sahara Sirocco really gave a good fight there, and it was unlucky just to be beaten, but Outer Orlando, the 11-year-old, as you said, the $1 million earner, class really prevailed there, and he was just too strong.
So he knows it's Miracle Mile time because he's been in Miracle Miles, Outer Orlando.
That's right.
He's placed in Miracle. So he but just a different day.
Daytime too.
While we're talking about Menangle on Tuesday, Luke McCarthy had a double there. Belinda, she had a training double. They're flying, and as we expect at this time of year, training driving double for Brad Hewitt, including Lebowski. Now, Lebowski's one that when we were promoting the fantasy harness racing game, we had Jared Croker on the show. Now, Jared's an owner in this horse, and he talk about how he's got a few of the Canberra Raiders boys in, and this is one they're not in. So he feels a little bit guilty when this horse does well. But I know that the ownership and definitely Brad have got a really high opinion of Lebowski. They're really happy with how he's going, and so they should be generating results for it.
Good trainer, always has good horses in the barn.
Yeah.
A big rap for Brad.
What about My Ultimate Byron? This is a horse that we thought could have been anything last year. Was on such an upward trajectory and then really dipped. Now came back and has had a win in the last race on the program on a Tuesday. Great to see. Went round as third or fourth favourite in that race. I'm not sure what to make of that.
Look, it happens. Champion juveniles don't necessarily transition to be, champion 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. It's just part of racing. We see it in all codes. They can burst on the scene and dominate. It's the rare bunch, and I'll use an example, Expensive Ego. Outstanding juvenile, and it's transitioned to race with the big boys. So, it doesn't happen to all of them, and My Ultimate Byron, he'll keep winning races. He's too good not to.
Yeah.
But, Paul, just before we move on, because I just wanted to share my best thing.
Yeah.
I want to give the stewards a rap.
Yeah.
For what they did. Now, you just touched on it. Now, on Saturday, the lightning was horrendous. It really was. And they put everyone's safety paramount before the running. They were desperate to get the meeting run, and they were going to run it. Just to give you an example, my race book, the last race had 6, from the original time of 10:50, it underwent, I think it was 6 different time changes. They put the races back one race, so that the last was going to go at 11:21. Then they put the meeting back 2 races, with the last to go at 3 minutes to midnight. Then they were able to bring it back to 10 minutes past 11, and then it ended up going at 11:35. And then, just to add insult to injury, I think we had a delay at the start with a flat tyre. But they were in touch with the Bureau of Meteorology to try and ascertain that the storm front had moved past, but it was quite incredible and very noticeable upstairs, the wind shift. It was coming from the south, and then it was swinging around almost northwesterly, and they were worried about it blowing back to the track, the lightning. So they were doing everything in their power to determine the weather conditions and I guess the forecast conditions for later in the night. And I just thought their determination, and obviously with the help with the participants all getting on board and all the track staff, I thought to get the meeting run, and as you say, condensed, and it made it exciting. You didn't have 35-minute gaps. It was, from my point of view, you virtually give all clear on one race, and you walk over, grab a mouthful of water, and then they're coming back onto the track for the next. For me, I loved it because it was rapid fire. Tested the memory a few times, but as far as what they did, I thought that was the best thing I've seen this week.
And obviously working in with Sky Racing as well, and being able to get
absolutely,
and find those time
their phones
slots.
Were running hot, Paul. They were on the phone to everyone. It was fantastic.
So we had the lightning storm last year. Obviously, it was horrendous what we copped on the first.
It definitely brought
first running of the Miracle Mile.
Flashbacks, didn't it, to last year's Miracle
Have we done it now? Is it out of the way?
Never say never, but let's hope.
Please,
I know.
please, weather gods, if you're listening, please be done with it.
Let's hope so. All right. Hey, we've talked a bit about Jackson Painting on this show because given the fantasy harness racing lens on participants and their results, Jackson's been doing really well. And yet the focus has been on other race meetings where he hasn't generated the results. So it hasn't been a fair reflection of how well he's been going. Well, he finally managed to make the two things work in unison at Leeton. He had a treble at Leeton. He got the big fantasy score. He got his moment of glory. Well done, Jacko. He's a friend of the show. He's been on the show. Great to see. Loved it.
Well done. I did not have him in my fantasy harness rating
he's been
team.
in my team
I
from the
traded
start.
him
I traded him out.
So I don't know how happy I am about him. No, well done, Jackson.
Good on you, Jacko.
We had a bloke who won the round, got the highest weekly score actually in the fantasy game. His name's Nathan Hertz. Mm-hmm. Not to be confused with Nathan Hurst.
Yes.
He's one of our drivers who had a great week actually. It would have been interesting if they had had each other. Well, Nathan Hertz had Nathan Hurst in his team, but he didn't. We clarified that yesterday in the Fantasy Harness Racing podcast. But the two Nathans, Nathan Hurst and Nathan Hoy, both had doubles at young on Tuesday night. Anthony Frisbee's one that our weekly winner did have. He revealed his hand there, and I think that might have been a really savvy play that might have got him across the line and won the first 2 races there at Bathurst. So a great stable, great horse people, really really astute trainers of horses. Ant's a great driver. He's been in the Inter Dominion, done really well, obviously, at that level, but not a name that we throw around on this podcast a great deal. So fantastic to be able to drop Ant's name into the show. Race to race double to start the card at Bathurst on Wednesday. We saw Better Be the Best back. Imagine, Better Be the Best is one of the best horses of his age category in the whole country. He's going around at Bathurst on a Wednesday night. How do you reckon the competition felt lining up against Better Be the Best and Nathan Turnbull's star 3-year-old boy?
I think they would have expected it at this time of year. There's bigger races, bigger targets coming up, so you expect to see these good horses lining up at your midweek races,
home track
at the home track as well. Yeah, so I think the opposition probably would have expected that.
Well, dominated accordingly. We raced at Bathurst twice during the week, guys. We had Wednesday night and we had Friday night. It was a blockbuster Friday night of racing in New South Wales. So Nathan had a double there on that card. He's got one named On Deadline that he's only recently acquired in the last few months. And that's now 5 from 6. Won this one by 20 metres. May have a handy one.
I think he has, and I'm looking forward to seeing when Nathan brings On Deadline to town, and I get to call him. Nice horse.
Well, Dougie Hewitt, he's one that we mentioned. Didn't mention Doug's name actually when we talked about Rip before, but yeah, great to see Rip back in form. Dougie had a double at Bathurst on Friday as well, so that's great to see. Leon Jurd's a name we don't mention on the show very often, unfortunately, but hey, we're going to give him his moment. So he had a training double at Goulburn yesterday, and when Leon wins, quite often they're at a price too.
Yeah, astute trainer, very astute trainer. Always, or very seldom, do you go to a race meeting where his horses either don't win or place. Of course, Leon, during the era of the claiming races going back a few years ago, I guess pre-COVID, he dominated. He dominated that scene, and always got a winner or two in his stable. Very astute trainer.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Now, we mentioned Brad Hewitt before. Brad got a week for an indiscretion on the track, so he's back on. That suspension ends on Wednesday night. Now, what that meant was one of his really star horses, Blazing Banner, went round yesterday, and Harrison Ross picked up the drive. So great news for Harrison. He managed to jump on a gun and went round and had a winner there at Goulburn yesterday. So well done, Harrison, one of the young up and coming drivers. Another up and comer is Tom Ison, treble at Armidale on Sunday, which is a great lead into their Carnival of Cups meeting, which is this weekend as well. So I went to that Armidale show last year for their Carnival of Cups, Fred. It was won by Gotta Shop Early. Now we Gotta Shop Early. It's going to call time on the career this weekend.
Yeah, I received a note from Richard Williams to say that Gotta Shop Early is going to enjoy greener pastures after Sunday. He's looking to go back to back. He's been a terrific horse, Gotta Shop Early. Had a few homes along the way, but he's amassed nearly $200,000. He'll crash over that if he can score on Sunday. So best luck. Enjoy retirement, old boy. He's been a terrific horse, a horse I know you've seen plenty of, Jess, Gotta Shop Early.
Yeah, he has, and I know last year he won the Armidale Cup and then backed that straight up in the Narrabri Cup, and he's been a really nice campaigner that I've enjoyed following around. I think he had a campaign down here at Menangle as well, and then back up there in that Tamworth region. So well done to them on a wonderful career with Gotta Shop Early.
Yep. Hey, I was at Newcastle on Friday night for the Group 2 Newcastle Mile. Fantastic night. The club has done an amazing job over the 3 weeks that they had up there.
Fest, yeah.
Excellent.
So well done to the club. They had a band called, not a band that I was familiar with, the Viper Creek Band, which apparently are a big deal in the Newcastle area and got a big following. They were there. They put on a really, really cool spectacle. It was a great night. As we said on the show before, it's one of the great tracks to go to because it's central in town.
It's a party. It's a real party atmosphere there in Newcastle.
Close. They have the food vans, the drink stalls. The kids had something to do. It was a really good vibe on track. The mini trotters were involved. It was just a fantastic night. Darren Elder had a training double on that program. So well done to Darren. Robbie Morris came out and won 3 in a row. So we're accustomed to talking about Robbie and Newcastle and Josh Gallagher and Newcastle and the Lucky Lodge stable, but Robbie went bang, bang, bang. I'll tell you what, if you multied them up, you would have got a price too. They all went round at decent numbers.
Price, yeah.
So it was a good night, but obviously that all led up to the Newcastle Mile crack field. Just absolute elite field. Well done to the club for. I mean, there's a lot of factors go into this field being good. Obviously, the opportunity to have a golden ticket into the Miracle Mile and secure that spot early is one thing. We're post-COVID, and the ability to travel is another thing. So we saw some Kiwi representation there, which was good. We just had like the luminaries of our sport in New South Wales all in and around those stables at Newcastle. It was really great to see. The race ended up being won by Mac Dan, who made it back-to-back. That's 2 years in a row, Mac Dan's won that race, Jess.
Yeah, it was a really impressive performance by him. And I think watching the interview on home on Sky Active with Danny and Joanna Zavitsanos, you could tell how much it meant to them. They were very excited to secure that automatic invitation to the Miracle Mile. But the horse I did want to talk about was Tasty Delight. He has stepped up into that open class grade. Yeah. Incredibly, and that is all credit to Brian. He's put so much effort into that horse, and to see him run second, he was just beat. That was incredible.
He's done the miles too, because that's obviously he did really well in the Newcastle Cup a fortnight earlier. Comes back and does really well in that race. It's interesting to see how Tasty Delight goes this weekend. Actually,
we touched on him, didn't we, after the Newcastle Cup? And I remember saying he was a very talented juvenile, and he just went off the boil. And Brian tipped him out, brought him back, and is really enjoying the fruits of success with Tasty Delight. Pete said so. He ran his usual race. But Mac Dan, the feature with Mac Dan, I thought, was he was able to sit tough, do it tough. I didn't always think that was necessarily his go, but he really impressed me the other night, Mac Dan. And, of course, BD Joe, who was the favourite, just didn't handle Newcastle. And I thought the interesting thing, if you reflect on last week's podcast when we spoke to Carter Dalgetty, he actually said Newcastle is the sort of track that it's a flatter track. The cambers aren't as significant, and he felt that it wasn't necessarily a good thing having their first crack at it, as in BD Joe. So I thought that was an interesting take home there. You'll see a better horse. I do rate BD Joe, and you'll see a better horse here on Saturday.
Would you make a Penny Tiger?
Good run.
I thought he did good as well. He definitely showed his gate speed, which we know he had at looking at his starts over there in the West. I think he'll benefit from that run over here. Yep. And then coming here to Menangle on Saturday night.
We had a trial here, didn't he?
He did.
A couple of weeks ago. He just had a time trial with
Jillaby Kung Fu.
Yeah. So.
Just on Mac Dan as well. I think it's really interesting. He's into the Miracle Mile now, obviously. He injects a really big plus to that race, his gate speed. Of course, we've seen him last year cross over to that fence before King of Swing. So I think that should be really interesting come barrier draw time.
Mac Dan appears to have gears and different ways of racing, though. Like
he's versatile.
Went from 12, at the other day in Newcastle. As I said, I was talking to Mark Pitt beforehand. He was very buoyant about Mac Dan's chances. He said to me, I think we've been racing in a different class to a lot of the ones we're going to come up against. Wasn't worried about the draw. Everything that he kind of thought might happen played out. I mean, that's a sign of a great driver, great training effort as well. But, you need things to go your way. Obviously, there was, with BD Joe sort of filtering back through the field early in the piece, Fred, that would have caused some level of, change up of
it changes the race. And that's where the good drivers, they can adapt. They've got to adapt. They've got to have a plan B or a plan C or sometimes a plan D. And that's when you're talking Mark Pitt, very, very talented driver who just knew what he had. He didn't panic being caught without cover, didn't engage too dramatically in that middle of the race. I guess in some way controlled the race from the chair, sitting outside the leader. So outside of him, I thought he was a terrific run. And as Jess said, if he draws, I don't know, well, it doesn't really matter where he draws his gate speeds. But there is a stat that says they draw 6 out in a Miracle Mile. It's very hard to even run a place. But he's got exceptional speed.
Incredible.
Should give a rap to Pete said so as well. I think that's obviously a horse that we've spoken about on the show a fair bit. Robbie Morris, Robbie and Kerry Ann were very keen on the progression of Pete said so through the Inter-Dominion Carnival and thought that the Carnival might be, our Carnival here might be a time where Pete said so might shine. Almost, like literally went within, I don't know what the margin was, Fred, it was pretty minimal of securing an early ticket into the Miracle Mile, being the first horse into the race.
Yeah, well, he gets his chance. He gets his chance during the course of the carnival. He's in that second qualifier, which we'll touch on soon. Tough race, that one, I thought, and there's a bit of speed that might suit him. That early speed that's in that race. He's in the Elite Express race 5 on Saturday. Pete said so, but you're spot on. He's just been a horse that he was, and wasn't he, Jess? He was a real good Saturday night, bread and butter horse for the stable. And as you said, Paul, they took him south for the Inter-Dominion, and he wasn't wanted in betting markets, and yet he ran a terrific race right through the series. Yeah. So hats off to them for their capacity to get this horse to step up to the next level.
Also, when he returned from that Inter-Dominion, we seen him go a sub 150 mile rate here in a great stoush with Expensive Ego. So we know that he's able to go under that 150 mark.
All right, well, let's have a look at it, eh? New South Wales Oaks, we've already talked about two of the two heat winners for that race. I know that we're very impressed with Kahlua Flyby.
Yeah, definitely. I think she's the filly to beat in my mind. I think she'll be able to overcome the draw, and she's really just taking great improvement from that first run here at Menangle.
She's just a dour staying type of filly. Terrific race. Sky Blue kind of surprised me on Saturday because the gate speed she showed from the deep. And she's run she's whacked away and run a terrific race. And obviously Peaceful. There were some other good runs on Saturday. Savion, I thought, did a terrific job as well for Ash, and second up will improve on that run. But hard to see them beating Kahlua Flyby just on her racing style.
What do we make of, so last year through the Breeders' Challenge, remember that incredible stoush between Peaceful and Major Delight, and they went toe-to-toe, and then they saw each other again a week later, and Major Delight got the better of Peaceful the second week. Peaceful this time was the runner-up. Can Peaceful reverse that in week 2? Like, is Peaceful good enough?
Oh, she's good enough.
To be able to reverse that. Do we think that Peaceful's gone to another level and could turn that result around in the second week?
She's good enough, no doubt. But I think Kahlua Flyby, on what we've seen, and again, I come back to what was said last week about her. I think it was Carter that mentioned it, that she is a horse that is probably better over a trip, and she's just a dour staying type. Certainly, Peaceful's good enough.
Yep.
I think the 2,400 metres is what falls into Kahlua Flyby's favour. I think if we're talking over a mile, it could potentially be a different story there, and I'd be sitting in Peaceful's corner again. Yep. But just over the longer trip, I have to stick with Kahlua Flyby.
You're jumping off Peaceful after all this time.
I know, after all that, we had great banter.
Arm wrestle? Is it those two, like
well, that'll be at their peril.
Roping down the straight again?
But that'll be at their peril, because that could play into the hands of some of the other very good fillies. A horse like a filly like Savion.
Soho Seraphine as well. We can't forget her. Yeah, the wide alley makes it very hard for her. But
Sky Blue could be the sleeper, getting a suck run. We've seen her sweep home in one win. We've seen her come through. She was good in the Breeders' Challenge. She could be the sleeper, but I really think, on paper at least, it looks to be 2-horse race.
Cracking race anyway. Group 1 New South Wales Oaks. What about the Queen Elizabeth II Mile? I said on the fantasy podcast yesterday, great that the Queen retains naming rights on this despite her sad passing.
Yeah, it's a lovely touch from the club, that's for sure. And this race is one that we've spoken about a lot on this show. It's one that we've been looking forward to, and the field has definitely lived up to expectations. It's incredible. It's those mares there that you've got from Tay, Fairy Tinkerbell, Total Diva, Stylish Memphis, Bravey Kelly, Tough Tilly. They're just to name a few. It just oozes quality, and I think it's going to be a really tough battle to pick a winner there.
So Tough Tilly was the impressive mare to come out of last week. Seemed to have something on Tay when it mattered. I mean, it's just the way that race played out. That doesn't mean that that's necessarily how it's going to be replicated. So how do we line up? Because Bravey Kelly's the one that's been so impressive over the last month. Cameron Hart has made a call that Braveview Kelly's the one that he's aligning with. How do we line up Braveview Kelly and Tough Tilly, and then obviously throwing Tay back in the mix?
I would suspect you're going to see Braveview Kelly driven differently. I can't get out of my head the time she went back and she stormed home down the outside off a hot tempo. I envisage Tough Tilly having to slide forward because that's her pattern. Tay will get away well. Madrid will be in the firing line. And then you got Stylish Memphis. Sort of Jack's, he's sort of in the middle of the pack there. He'll come out of 7 with Stylish Memphis. But I think Braveview Kelly will go back, and I think will finish, potentially has the capacity to finish over the top.
What's the thoughts on Greg Sugars picking up the drive on Tay? Does that add any? I mean, look, it's at Cameron Hart, who's obviously the Inter-Dominion champion,
sure,
and our gun.
Gee, Sugars is no slouch.
That's, I don't think.
Doesn't
You're not losing anything.
Well, you're not losing
gaining,
anything,
no.
and you could argue whether you're gaining something, but Cam's got the local, the
unreal drivers, at top of their game.
All right, cracking race regardless. The Allied Express Sprint. These sprints are amazing because obviously there's an extra carrot on the end of the race result with these. What's your thoughts, Jess?
Yeah, I think on paper this one appears to be the more even qualifying sprint out of the two. Of course, Expensive Ego, there's been plenty of raps on him. Will he be able to get the job done, Freddie? I know you've got a big opinion of him coming into Saturday night. For me, I think Where You Been Boppin' could potentially throw a bit of a challenge here because drawn from Barrier 3, you'd think that he'd be able to cross the likes of Torrid Saint and Cranbourne. And from there, would he hand up to something? I'm not too sure over the mile if he would.
Never really been his go, has it?
No.
And he just rolls and rolls and rolls and maintains that high cruising speed, whereas some of the other horses are going to have to get into the race. Yeah, I'm sticking with Expensive Ego simply because I'm convinced, and I could be wrong, and I say this with great respect to not only the trainer but the owner, I don't know that he really enjoys racing at Melton. And I think back here at home, he's going to run better. He ran through the line at Melton. He didn't look comfortable on the turns and coming off the back straight, but then he seemed to run through the line well and finished 5th in that Hunter Cup. And I think with a little bit of a freshen up, they'll have him cherry ripe, and I think you'll see a better horse. But you're spot on. This race, you could make a case for nearly every runner.
Well, speaking of the Hunter Cup, the winner of that race is here for the Allied Express Sprint. So Honolulu Bay, David Moran returns to take the drive. It was such an eye-opening and a memorable drive from David in that race. What do we make of Honolulu Bay here at Menangle? First up, obviously coming out of that Hunter Cup campaign.
Yeah, I think he's going to be really impressive. Whenever Emma and Clayton bring a horse up to here, they're on song and ready to go. I think he'll be out there to qualify. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you the other one, keep an eye on. I know it's drawn horrible. But again, Carter gave us a push for Krug last week and said, he's really starting to develop into a top-notch seasoned campaigner. Again, barrier makes it tough. But remembering, first and second go through, and then other, good performances are then considered from these sprint races. So,
if I have to throw another one in there as well, I think Outer Wise Guy has really been flying under the radar of late. His number form doesn't suggest that since arriving here, but I think to the eye, those runs have been impressive.
The Torrid Saints one we threw up in previous podcasts obviously was great in the Hunter Cup and then did well in the Newcastle. The other race that Torrid Saint went well in.
He was here the other week in the free-for-all.
Right, in the free-for-all here,
And the third placing.
Right,
that third placing was a good run as well. That was
a strong race, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about the Schweppes Sprint, guys?
Yeah, another
Bondi
strong.
lockdown.
Yeah, I'm sticking in the Bondi lockdown camp. I think when I seen that barrier draw come out and he's drawn the Plum Alley there in one, I think he'll be too strong there. But of course, anything can happen in racing.
That's an amazing race. If you go through it, you've got it from top. Bondi Lockdown, we've been waxing lyrical about Bondi Lockdown for the last few weeks. Your Tasty Delight, who's just hit that purple patch of form. Spirit of St. Louis has proven in that grade. Then down to Better Zip It. Couldn't have been more impressive the other night. Hurricane Harlem, not sure. Penny Tiger, brilliant gate speed. Triple Eight bounced back to the winner's circle at Melton on Saturday. Then you got I Cast No Shadow, reigning in it on horse. And then BD Joe, I think, is a better horse than we saw at Newcastle. And my old mate Zeus Bromac, who's probably going to find it tough. He'll be finishing on. But that race is a terrific race. But it looks as though, Jess, I agree with you, Bondi Lockdown, just on what we've seen. And I did speak very briefly to Luke during one of our storm delays or rain delays, as they would say in the cricket. And he was very bullish about how well that horse is going. He was a bit the same about Ego as well. He said they're going really well. So, yeah.
What about incredible that Republican Party's the one we were talking about for last week, and yet it's now listed as an emergency for a race like that.
And JOK, we were talking
the depth of
JOK,
that race,
emergency 2 there. I was quite shocked at that JOK was only emergency 2.
He did.
Both of them, should they not gain a start, they'll go around in race 1, and that's a cracking field, race 1 on Saturday night as well. You've got the likes of Rip there, Reactor Now, Sakairo there for Jason Grimson, Our Money Rocks, Jillaby Kung Fu.
Yeah, it's deep,
the list just goes on.
Yeah, it's deep. And of course we've got the heats of the Derby guys.
Yeah, they're 3 really exciting heats. There's some class there. As of course you see Amanda and Steve Telfer out of Medial lines up in that first heat, drawn barrier 1. Rock and Roll Hammer, of course, we've seen him do everything right last start at Menangle and got the chocolates. And Blazing Home for Jackson and David Kennedy there. He's been really impressive each time he's came up to Sydney here, and he's got 4 wins his last 4 starts, so he's definitely one to keep an eye out for in the first heat.
All right, well, out of that comes the barrier draw for the Miracle Mile, so we'll know who's in contention. Now, that is going to be live on Sky Racing 2 on Sunday afternoon. There's actually going to be a window so the Harness Racing New South Wales Industry Awards are on Sunday, and there's going to be a window in the programming for the barrier draw that'll go live on Sky Racing 2. So keep an eye out for that, because obviously the barrier draw is so fascinating in the context of the Miracle Mile, isn't it? We saw King of Swing do so well. Obviously a great horse, but the barrier draw was such an asset.
It's dynamite. Those inside 5 gates generally, and that it's a stat that just doesn't lie. Seldom do horses run placings. Since they've been running Miracle Miles here, the first one was in 2009. If you don't draw 1 to 5, you're an old-time waltzer. I think there's been maybe 1 or 2 that have run top 3, maybe 3 that have run top 3 in that 14-year history.
Yeah, keep an eye out on the Club Menangle social media and the Harness Racing New South Wales social media, because all the details around that barrier draw they'll be getting rolled out. Brittany Graham will be hosting the awards night, and obviously then the awards sort of turns into a TV show, Jess. So has that focus, and it'll be live on Sky Racing too. It also has an impact on the Armidale Carnival of Cups race meeting, so they'll have a bigger window in between races. And speaking to the club, they've got a great band that they had last year. They'll be back, and they do a great job with entertaining people there. So that'll be on. They'll use that window to get their mini trotters to go. So any people on track will be able to watch the barrier draw as well. So it'll have a real nice push in, even when we've got a major regional meeting going on with the Carnival of Cups at Armidale. So keep an eye out for that. As I said, the socials, you'll get all the details on what's happening there. So, guys, an 8-race program here at Menangle this afternoon. Jess, again, good racing. I mean, you can't go wrong at this time of year.
Yeah, that's right. The Tuesday classes as well, you get horses that would normally be lining up on a Saturday, because there's heats of Derbies and Oaks of the like, they're forced back to Tuesday grade, so it makes it really competitive racing.
The Black Prince
you're not
goes
calling
around
this afternoon, but you'll be keeping an eye on it.
BK's behind the 1050s this afternoon. But the Black Prince, Newcastle Mile winner 2 years ago, and it was in a Miracle Mile, and he goes around today at around about the $1.50 mark, $1.60 mark, and that's just echoing what Jess said. Yeah, this time of year, the Tuesday meetings are we saw that with Elder Orlando.
That's exactly
last
right.
week. So, very good race meeting.
He's a ripper, Black Prince. He's a beautiful horse. Really, really striking on the eye. Tamora's on tonight. We've got Bathurst Wednesday, Penrith Thursday. Friday's a big day of racing. You've got Wagga Parks and Newcastle on Friday. Of course, as I mentioned, Armidale's on Sunday, Newcastle's on Monday, and of course, Freddie, in between all of that, is the big Group 1 night. Yeah, 2 Group 1s, 2 Group 2s.
Just a massive night.
Yep.
It's actually one of my favourite nights of the carnival. Obviously, Miracle Mile, all those Group 1s.
It's like prelim finals in the footy. They're always the best
you're
games.
just waiting. You're waiting. And you can make a case, like we've just touched on, you can make a case for a heap of runners in each of those races to get into the... And there's only, realistically, there's 4 guaranteed berths out of those 2 races, and then it gets down to the directors deciding, well, that horse ran third. Do we, in that one, in quick time, do we invite captain? Do we put the 4th horse for... That's
the moment too, isn't it? It's when everything goes behind closed doors then.
And you're waiting.
You're
upstairs. I'm upstairs, and I'm thinking, okay, when's the phone going to ring? Is it Bruce Christensen with the final field, or and you're waiting for it to come up on Sky Racing. It's a real exciting moment when you're waiting for that final field, and there are reactions. Sometimes you go, oh, really? Other times you go, yeah, well, we expected that. So.
Yeah, I know. I was involved in the broadcast last year, and we were waiting and being able to sort of make those announcements, and that was really cool. 10 races on that program too, so and you'll be able to see all of that on Sky Racing Active. So there'll be great coverage of that. So keep an eye out for that, because you're not going to go wrong by tuning into that coverage. Well, there's a couple of things I wanted to mention. Obviously, just the yearling sales are coming. It's a big time of year when it comes to the next generation, and the yearling sales, obviously. This is where you're going to snap up a champion.
That's right.
Well, you hope to anyway.
You could be going to purchase your Catch a Wave, that's for sure, at the yearling sales. I know it's one of my favourite weekends of the year. It's Miracle Mile weekend.
Saving up.
I have been saving up. I've got a few bonuses there as well, Breeders' Challenge bonuses. So who knows? Don't let me loose in that sales ring there. But there's a yearling parade on the Friday night, so I think that's the March 4th.
Yep.
Then the Saturday night's Miracle Mile, and then the yearling sales are then on the Sunday at Warwick Farm at the Inglis Complex. So it'll be a fantastic weekend there.
Should be.
That's been a great addition, Paul, that parade on the Friday night. They make it a real event.
Yep.
And prospective buyers get the chance to have a cast their eye, and it just gives you that real buzz, because the next day, as Jess said, is the Miracle Mile, and then hopefully without too sore a head and plenty of money, you go and buy, like you said, your next champion.
Fantasy harness racing's still kicking along. How'd your team? I see you got it open there, Fred. How's your team going this week?
Yeah, my team last week went okay. I ended up with I went from about 140 down to about 120.
Yeah, so you made gains. Nice.
115. 115.
There you go.
Nice.
So I've improved slowly, but I'm spotting as we would say, I'm spotting the leader about 500.
His lead is shortened though.
Yeah, it has. He's only 60 in front.
Yep, and it was 100. It was 3 figures last week. Yeah. So how'd you go, Jess? I know you're hot on the Mark Pitt play.
Yeah, that was a theory that I had harped on about since the fantasy game was launched, and I was glad to see that it paid off in the Newcastle Mile, that's for sure. But I actually didn't go too good. I went down quite a few spots, and I think I'm now sitting very high 300s, borderline 400s. So
it's not too bad though. The weekly winner is at 293. So that shows.
It shows you how you can. Yeah.
And he had but you can make those gains. We've sort of said a few times, my team has done quite well, but I've fallen back a little bit too. I'm somewhere around 29th or 30th or something like that. But the weekly winner put 100 points on me and made gains, and is up to 293. So you can make those jumps, and he did it through, like I said before, he had Anthony Frisbee in his team. He had Jackson Payne in his team. There's 2 points of difference on mine. He had Mark Pitt, but he had Robbie as his captain.
That makes
which
the
I
difference.
didn't, and then
Robbie makes.
Bang, there's your 100-point gap. So it's possible, guys, and and he's walked away with a $250 Harvey Norman voucher out of it as well. So there's plenty going on, but the harness racing, fantasy harness racing game just puts a whole new lens on it. And I loved walking through Newcastle the other night, and as I'm sort of walking through, because there was triple points up for grabs on Mac Dam with Mark Pitt, and you could hear people going, I just got triple points for Robbie by coming third, and so there was an extra lens and an extra reason to be paying attention to the result.
It's such a talking point. I know the people I associate with who aren't really harness racing fans, they're just in raptures over it. They love it. And even walking through the stables on Saturday during the storm, I was talking to, Have you got yourself in your... Oh, yeah, I got myself. I'm not the captain, but, and it's just created that buzz. I'm so rapt that we've got this game in our sport, this product in our sport. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, there's also 41 new drivers that were added into the game for this week too. So there's extra options to choose from. And, we mentioned Greg Sugars before. So he's a name that got added in that he's going to race in those triple point score races. So you've got 2 double points and 2 triple points. So if that margin looks intimidating, you're behind, that's how you can catch it up.
Catch it up that way, yeah.
By getting that right. So good luck. Like, you got 1 o'clock is the lockout. So probably by the time a lot of people are listening to this, it'll be sort of too late to make your trades. But it's never too late to sign up because you can go after that $250 voucher each week. All right, Jess, I know you've been beating yourself up for how your black bookers have gone in 2023.
I haven't tipped a winner in 2023.
Where are you taking us this week?
Yeah, I'm going back to Penrith on Thursday night. L. Jacob for Barry Fagan and Glenn McElhenney. It was four wide around the final turn last Thursday. I thought it hit the line really strongly, and if it's able to overcome the draw on Thursday night, I think it will be hard to beat.
Freddie?
I can't split 2 horses, and they were in the one race they were in the Chariots. Can't find a better man, and My Ultimate Ronnie. There was only 2 metres between that pair at the line. They were beaten about 9 and 11 metres respectively from Catch a Wave, but the way they attacked the line, they will be winning races very, very soon. The only thing is, on those performances, you're probably not going to get a price because they were well found. Everyone saw the runs. You don't necessarily need me to tell you, but I just thought they were brilliant on Saturday.
I know you got a high opinion of how expensive Ego's been going.
Yeah, look, I really think Menangle's his go. I'm just not convinced he really enjoys racing at Melton. He got a slightly better draw, even though it was a back row draw in the Hunter Cup. He just looked lost at sea when he was making his move. And once he flattened and they straightened up, he really seemed to really hit the line well. I do think he'll go well on Saturday night.
Okay, all right. Guys, we've had a different podcast today. We're in a different room. We had some tech issues at the start. We ironed them out. What we are going to do, though, something exciting, is we're going to have a podcast a lot. So obviously we've got our live show on Tuesdays. That'll stay. But over the next couple of weeks, Jess, we're going to be catching up. There's going to be a lot of people in and around this precinct here at Tabcorp Park Menangle. A lot of the big guns of our sport nationally are going to be here. Oh, in Australasia, for that in that perspective with our Kiwis here. So what we are going to do is get them in here, and we'll sit them down and we'll sort of talk a lot about racing and what it all means in the context of not only this weekend but coming up to the Miracle Mile, and we'll talk about the barrier draw and different things. So keep an eye out. The best way to make sure you don't miss one of the podcasts is to hit that follow or subscribe button, when you're listening to it, because it'll pop up automatically. We'll keep trying to promote it through our socials and text message service and that, let our industry people know. But to everyone who supported us along the way, thanks for that. It really is appreciated. We love doing this show. It's one of the highlights of our week, I know, for all of us, and particularly getting a guest on. So we're going to do that a little bit over the next 2 weeks. So give us a like, share, follow, tell everyone about it if you can. Freddie, I know you've got appointments with, you're still moving house, you're still doing all that, domestic chores.
Do you remember the race they used to run in New South Wales at Harold Park called the Ben Hur? Do you remember that race?
No, I don't.
Oh, come on. Now you're really making me feel old.
I don't remember the Ben Hur.
You don't remember the Ben Hur?
No.
I'm sure there was a race.
Is
Anyway,
it before my
bigger than Ben Hur.
I think
it's in
it
the
was
90s.
before
I'm
my
pretty sure it
time.
was in the... Anyway, the Ben Hur. Moving house,
I'm not
for me,
90.
has been bigger than Ben Hur.
Bigger than Ben Hur.
And I've we've had a few little incidents at the new place that... and I make as a handyman, I make a good race caller. I'm the most unhandiest man, Tim the Toolman Taylor, I need him to bail me out. But anyway, any tradies...
keeping other people in jobs. So
well, that's it.
I'm
being positive, but oh goodness gracious me! I tell you what, I think I need Heaven on High to come back and win a few races to pay for the trades.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck with that, Jess.
Thanks,
we're
mate.
going to be catching up a lot over the next fortnight or so, sitting down with some people. So everyone out there, have a great week ahead. We're going to catch you soon on some special editions of the Sprint Lane. Until then, thanks for tuning in today. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Cheers.